But outside of specialist format, I remain unconvinced.
Yeah, we are going to flip the day on its head, at least a little bit so far, and we are going to move into our next match, which is Casie versus Seiko. And this is different because now the Druid has the favored matchup, and you're probably not going to see Casie, who is piloting that Druid, the same as Tice, get stomped in a quick 2-0 victory. I think the onus is definitely going to be on Seiko, on Priest, to find some way to deal with this, whether it's just tempo on board, whether it's trying to do something tricky and stealing some of the win conditions away from Casie somehow. But Seiko is piloting that Highlander Priest, and I think he's one of the better players of the Priest that we've got in the European Grandmasters, honestly. So I do think if someone's going to find a way to beat this Mali Druid, it will be him. It's just if it's reasonably possible at all.
Yeah, a player with a ton of respect, perhaps even more so in the pro community than he gets from casual onlookers as well. You know, going back many, many years now, so many people are giving Seiko credit for doing work behind the scenes on, tournament lineups for them, and, helping them to get stronger ladder finishes, to everything they're helping them improve as a player. Seiko's been the linchpin behind quite a few practice groups, and I'm going to mention practice groups a lot this week because I think it's very, very interesting seeing our Division A here being particularly dominated by these two practice groups that I am talking about. Casey's group with Bunny Hopper, Tice, RDU, and then also the group that I was talking about Tyler with in our Catching Up episode, if any of you caught any of that, which Seiko is a potential part of as well, with many other extremely strong Grandmasters from multiple regions.
Yeah, and again, I just want to reach I'm excited to see what happens in the following weeks, because suddenly it's not less of a team effort, but you're going to be facing your teammates more often and more obviously, right? Because the matchups are set up. Each player plays every other player in the group. So very, very interesting to see how that dynamic may or may not change going forward. But for now, we are going to go into our second semi-final of the day. Casie versus Seiko. Casie on the top on that Malygos Druid, doing very, very well in the tournament so far. And Seiko, honestly, with all the work in the world to do here on the Priest.
This always hits you, Sarah. Every single time. Oh, unlucky. Casie just picking right back up where he left off. Hit the absolute nuts game after game yesterday, and then just straight back in the seat, straight into the Breath Overgrowth Guardian Animal's hand. Insane stuff.
How much of playing Druid is raw confidence that you will draw the ramp? Do you think that has an effect, like some kind of universe, bending ability of if you just believe that you'll draw the ramp, you just will?
Snap pick on the Breath of Dreams from Seiko there, who does have the dragon of his own to be able to get a little bit of ramp of his own going. Very, very nice.
Also a good little peek into Casey's hand, right? Because he got to see the guardian animals as well. So he knows that is coming at some point soon. And that point soon is next turn,
now.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, Madame Lazul Mindrender is actually a weird little 1-2 combo as well. I talked about how you can send out Lazul as a scouting party to learn information about your opponent's hand before you go for any Mindrender plays. So, I mean, Seiko does have additional information now as well.
I do wonder that Seiko has to be just assuming he's going to get guardian animals next turn. And it's very interesting what the setup is, because he could play Wretched as a kind of throwaway minion in this matchup, at least in my opinion, and then save some tools for the response turn now. But I guess this way round does have access to, depending on what comes out, Wretched into Shadow Word Death as a potential response if, for example, we saw the Twilight Runner instead.
Yeah.
That might help clear the board, but yeah, we didn't see that, so it's going to be a lot more tough for Seiko to deal with right now.
Yeah, imagine setting up a plan against Druid and then actually getting lucky so it pays off. That's never going to happen, is it? Let's be honest.
I must consider.
Hey, at least he can Shadow Word Death the Mukla that comes out of one of these teachers' pets.
Ah, yes. He just needs to get ready once the Asir is played to switch decks and draw a card, so then you'll draw all the portals and summon a board full of 8/8s for Seiko.
I was about to say, not again. I thought Casie was going to get educated again when I saw the 3/4. There's very little chance of that.
Nothing too great here for Seiko. The Cobalt Spellkin will of course be 4 mana, which means he can play it and have a go at a 1 mana spell. But I don't know what 1 mana spell is really going to do the job right now, so I do like him going a little bit different here. And Shadow Madness just to trade 2 minions off seems reasonable. Or I guess 1.5 minions off. So.
Indeed. Iron Big Owl, very non-threatening. But Casie can just keep marching on here. Hand dump, overflow, find himself the gas. Start threatening lethal, honestly, from this point onward, as far as Seiko's concerned.
When you see the deck work like it has, that, you know, Guardian of Animals into some slight removal and an overflow, it is just the paint by numbers of Druid right now, isn't it? These are just all the things you want to be doing, kind of in the correct order as well.
Yeah.
Seiko firmly on the back foot here. And yep, there we go.
Easy.
Okay, it's time. Are you assuming that Casie has a card draw card in hand? And if so, go for it.
Yeah, the problem is that overflow would be too expensive, right, for the Mind Render to get work out of. It is worth noting, though, that Casey's in such a smooth position, he does need to keep Mind Render in mind at all times. Generally, when you have cards like Innovate, Lightning Bloom, Moonfire, etc. in your hand, those are really, really cheap, dumpable cards. You should be more liberal with them in this matchup in general, just because they can be punished very hard by being stolen from Mind Render. So if you can get minimal value out of them on your turn, that's better than your opponent getting value out of them on their turn.
Just an owl on the board at the start here for Casie, and he didn't get a Dream Portal. But he still has plenty of options. Does front reload 2 Twilight Runners and draw most of his deck next turn? Is that ever a play?
He can 1 runner and just play an overflow this turn. If he just then goes Vape Bloom overflow. Worst case scenario, dump the Moonfire at the end of the turn.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I wondered whether that was a little bit much. I think I always get a little bit too bothered by overload with Bloom on a turn like this, because you're drawing a load of cards, but you're overloaded, so there's less things you can do next turn with those cards, right? Is the way I see it. That is not really the right way to see it, because as you can see, there's multiple different ways that this overflow is going to pay off for Casie, like dragons. So it is still fine. It's just I do always sort of stare at that overload, and it's like, is that going to limit his turn too much? And this is what Seiko needed to avoid, and it sounds silly, but he needed to avoid Casie having a good game. Because, as you can see, this whole game has been Seiko trying to find his way out of awkward situations from like turn 3 onwards, right? And that's because Casey's gone ramp into Guardian, into draw, into more draw, into board pressure with the Ysera, and so on. And these are things that Priest doesn't really defend against that well when it happens literally turn after turn. Wait.
Yeah, I know.
Lethal next turn?
I know.
Oh, Seiko. I did say you were going to win, so do me a favor. That is insane.
So, in case anyone isn't following what's going on right now, 1 mana Mali into Mind Render into play all of your opponent's burn spells. It can just potentially be the game ender.
I bring life and
Casie just going in. There's 11 on board. And there's 15 coming back the other way. I think Seiko will be just short as long as Casie trades off the other damage. Oh, the second swipe! Not enough mana though. What does the Lightning Bloom do enough?
Yeah, he does.
So he'd spend 4 and then he blooms double swipe.
2 to 8. Yeah, and then there's Moonfire,
which is 18. Seiko has no way of knowing but he does have lethal right now.
But Casie only has 5 cards left, and add some of those portals.
Yep.
And my point, Sol, is let's say he's got no knowledge whatsoever, but what does his hand do for him right now?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. He cannot stop this next turn from Casie, so why not have a peek?
Yeah, 5 cards left. 3 of them are portals for Casie. So he has, 28 cards essentially in his hand, minus the ones that have been played, of which neither 2 swipes or moonfires have been seen.
What? Even if he doesn't think he can lethal, weren't the odds to clear with swipes super high? Even if he just clears the board?
Going to go to Lifesteal line instead with the Penance. Hope this is good enough to stick. And then just try and scam with the Nosdormu at the end of the turn. Alright, I kind of love this too, to be fair. I'm kind of into this in a weird, twisted way. Go, 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 Casie.
Cards, so the Dream Portal wasn't going to summon.
Casie, you have been training your entire life for this very moment. Easy. Look at his face. Look at his face right now. You try and Nosdormu me? You know who I am?
No problems whatsoever. He doesn't even attack with the minion, even though he could have always done it. Didn't even need it. Casie going to take game number 1 there. And I am sure there will be a lot of discussion about Seiko's options. It is very easy, Subtle on myself to sit here and be like, of course you mind render. But one thing I will say, with so few cards in the deck, was just taking 2 swipes, but a reasonable chance at taking 2 swipes, not only clearing the board, let's say, but also stopping them coming back against you the other way for lethal. Again, there's a lot to look at, and there's a lot of, diving into Seiko's mindset for that last point. But it was crazy because it could have happened. 1 mana Malygos, Mind Render, let's go with the spells. So Casie, although pulled at the end of that game off very cleanly, of course, could have been in trouble and had the game stolen away from him there. Oh.
Yeah, it was really, really sick. And let's, just recap what actually happened, because even though the theoretical end of that game could have been insane, the actual end of that game was insane as well, with, Seiko getting good use out of the Mali anyway, with the big lifesteal burst of healing from the Penance, and then just trying to lock out Casie, of all people, with the Nosdormu at the end, which was never going to work. He had, as I said, been training his entire life at that moment, and he finished with, still like 10 seconds to spare at the end of the turn. Plenty of time in the bank.
Yep, he knows his combos pretty well and can pull them off with the quickest APM. But that was just our game 1 of this series. And just to let you all calm down from the excitement of the end of that one, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to continue the series. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone. We are ready to get into our next game between Casie and Seiko. And it's going to be a tough one for Seiko right now. There was a chance. There was a chance in certain timelines that game could have gone differently for the end there for Seiko. And it was pretty exciting. But we are going to see if he can make a comeback here, or if maybe, as expected, subtle sounds a bit miserable, I guess, but as expected, that Casie will just take the sweep with the Malygos Druid. Because honestly, the Druid and the Zoo, it's just the correct line to beat Priest, it seems, and the results show that.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Or they're starting to, at least. There was questions throughout the Swiss of how much the Zoo matchup was actually favoured, but I think we're starting to demonstrate, as I was saying, that the matchups we were seeing where the Priest was winning were the anomalies, even though they were weirdly more common in our small sample size, and that Zoo generally does just absolutely steamroll that matchup most of the time. But yeah, this is the one that we have seen consistently, even on broadcast, be a complete struggle for the Priest. Seiko is going to try something a little bit different here, I believe, by switching to his secondary deck, going up against Casie. So that is Mind Render out, Breath out, Wretched Tutor out, Cobalt Spellkin out, Convincing Infiltrator out, Psychic Conjurer, Thought Steal, Shadow Madness, Shadow Word Ruin, Shield of Galakron coming in.
One thing that is in as well for Casie is, guess what? More ramp. As having the Overgrowth in his opening hand already might just be a bit of an indicator of things to come right now, because even though Seiko has switched to the other list, I don't know if it really does enough. It definitely wasn't really built for this matchup.
Yikes. Growth into growth. Does he hit the dragon? He does not. He does hit the lightning bloom, though. Infinite mana here for Casie over the course of the game. And Seiko is determined to find a way to Malygos down the Malygos Druid. That 9 mana Malygos, though, is going to be a lot harder for him to work with.
Seiko going to go fishing for a different spell, and this is not to heal, not to do anything tricky on board. It is just saying, I want to swap this spell for something I think is more useful. The Renew not going to cut it, so just using that mana, which is it's a small thing, but it's a good thing to do. Utilize the mana when you can, so you've got more freed up for the following turns.
Yeah, it's absolutely a good thing, especially since he's so definitively the aggro deck in this matchup, even though he's not necessarily built to do so. But when you are the aggro in the matchup, absolutely spend your mana. He had 1 mana unspent that turn, so he just spent it for efficiency. You can't really be truly aggressive if you are floating resources at the end of each turn.
Here's a question now, though. There was the choice between Overgrowth or just a Bloom, Guardian Animals, and Nubisat. Casie decided could just take it a little bit slower. Do you think the dormant minion on Seiko's side of the board has much impact on that decision?
I think potentially he wants to set up a huge turn next turn. Next turn he can Bloom Ghidra Animals, but just an enormous, potentially immediately game-winning board state, which I think is something he's potentially looking at holding back for here.
Yeah, and as you said, although Seiko is in the aggro role, his deck does not do that. So it's not like this one-turn skip, I'll say, from Casie is going to really shake up the game and put Casie on the back foot. Even if Seiko played his biggest minion as a 5-drop, which I think is like Cobalt Spellkin, as a 3/5.
That's cut.
Not really going to put too much of a dig into it.
He's cut the Spellkin.
Oh, that's one of the cards he got rid of. Apologies. Yeah, I saw the Convincing Infiltrator was gone, but did not see the Spellkin, yeah? Seiko says, why play a 5-drop when you can play a 7-drop?
Exactly. You're saying, 5-drops aren't particularly threatening. 7-drops might have something to say about that, though. Sequencing here, pretty important. It looked like Casie was going to lead Moonfire, but yeah, I don't think there's any reason to do that. He can lead Bloom into the animals and then use the Moonfire afterwards if he decides he needs to. Which he certainly will here to deal with the Divine Shield.
What was important here as well is, like the draws gave him more options. Although he could have done it in a different order, this is probably just optimal, right? And the most important thing is, don't mess up Ghidra.
Exactly, yeah. And actually preserving the Moonfire entirely here and just sacrificing his Teacher's Pet instead. Valuing a Moonfire in his hand, essentially, over an entire 4/5 on the board, which, is fine, I guess, in this matchup. Having the security of that full 30 damage combo available to you is huge in the matchup. Bay Alex. push damage. Seiko's
No,
kind
no
of dead.
germination. Went into 7 mana. It does have another Shadow Word rune, which can help with the Alexstrasza. But again, the Anubisath and the Porcupine is just there, sneaking under that removal right now.
Wait. You know how I've made fun of you in the past because you can't say rune when it's like Grave Rune or whatever? You just actually said rune for Shadow Word Ruin. Do you just have those words like reversed in your head? Is that what's
mixing
happening?
it up.
Yeah,
Keep you on your toes.
Okay.
It's called an accent, Sol.
I know. I know. What kind of idiot would
You
have
don't
one of
say
those?
words. How I do. You
I
are
know.
wrong.
Exactly. What kind of moron would just like put random R's on the end of words for no reason? Can you imagine?
Or put too many A's in certain words.
Or just have every letter in his alphabet be a W.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I was aiming one at you there, Sol. I don't know if you
I know,
noticed.
I was just switching the heat to Lorinda
Okay.
for a bit, yeah.
We can gang up on Lorinda, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, just this second Anubisath from Casie is just, in a weird way, the Malygos Druid is just doing the beatdown with minions right now. It's on Seiko to try and defend here, which is going to be a little bit difficult.
Sound like you're going to break out into Beatdown Boulevard there for a second, Draven, just the
Yeah.
way you delivered that.
A simple spell.
Alright.
Yeah, that
Decent
can buy
options.
some time.
Yeah.
And next turn there is the Plague of Death, which means no matter what this board looks like, if Psycho's surviving, he can just wipe it all away.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, I think Psycho did not really want to focus this game on removing his opponent's minion-based aggro board when he then has to go, okay, they're gone. Oh, I'm going to get mallied now, right?
Yeah, and I kind of respect the greed here as well, holding on to the Wave of Apathy. But potentially that combination with the Cabal Acolyte, some kind of swing turn that actually might end up winning him the game here. Because otherwise, as you said, it's just kind of the struggle to survive, right? And that's not really where Seiko needs to be. There's potential with the bricks that are coming off the top for Casie that he might just be able to starve out the hand if no impactful card draw comes over the next few turns.
I'm waiting for the ultimate way for this game to end, which is the Germination on the Porcupine.
Oh, yeah.
For the max extra damage. Is
Your mind
Is it
not
ever-
sure.
I guess not. I don't know. Again, I was just like, maybe stupidly just staring at Malygos and was thinking, what if Psycho just plays Malygos right now? And then gets like penance off the top or something, you know what I mean? To heal
Right.
up and like start and stick a Malygos, like maybe get something. It's very extreme, but I think that's where Psycho is right now. Not only in the matchup, but in this game.
Or brick again. They are still coming for Casie. Now Seiko has a real window, a definitive window, and
Oh,
now a
okay.
huge gaping window with that Apotheosis.
Yeah, see him as well.
Yep.
10 mana. Oh, it's a lot of health. And it also means that because of the nature of Casey's hand and lack of card draw, he's probably not going to be able to full burst Psycho. And the more health Psycho gets, it means that Casey can't piece together the lethal. You know, maybe one swipe, one Moonfire or something like that. If he gets more health, it means that Casey is going to need the big burst to actually get the job done.
I wonder.
Is Psycho just considering the need for Wind Fury here to not only survive with this Apotheosis, but to actually win the game?
I love the Wind Fury.
I like it, yeah, I like
absolutely
this, yeah.
love this Wind
To
Fury.
win the game.
Yep.
And also the Apotheosis helps because Tiamat's still a 6 health minion, right? It's still kind of awkward to deal with.
Ooh! Game of Hearthstone's appeared. Dream cycles more. One swipe, one Moonfire now in hand. 5 cards remaining. None of them are portals. You can see the Asera Unleashed in hand. So in that bottom 5, there is the Mali, the second swipe, the second Moonfire, all of which Casie needs as a matter of urgency right now. There is
Try and
just
match
20 damage coming back the other way right now.
Yeah, and he can heal himself, play Galakron for the armor, and then Galakron sets up the Kronks for potential. All right. For potential lethal as well with Krunk's next turn.
That's actually, like, obviously that's just fun. But outside of that, that's actually really good information for
Yeah,
Seiko to
knowledge,
have right
yeah.
now.
Surely it's Galakrond, right? It activates Krunks. So if any of these minions, he can either buff them or have an additional 5 damage.
Yeah.
The armor seems insane when you know there's not only the Mali might not even get drawn.
Yep.
Why not have the safety net?
I agree. Standard
I like
combo,
it.
30 damage exactly, 31 if you get the hero power in as well from the Mali Druid. So going to 35 is actually a fantastic additional security blanket here.
And now
Moonfire.
suddenly,
Yeah.
Casey's got to change pace now. Instead of going for this big OTK combo, he has to just transition over to the Ysera plan of saying, okay, my deck's low enough, I'll play Ysera, make some dragons, but it's just not going to be enough. He can't even kill the Tiamat.
I was going to say, he has to transition over to rage conceding the game. That's all that he's doing right now. There is no way that he can answer that board state, and Seiko does find a way out of that second one. It's pretty strong. Opener there from Casie. He had the standard ramp start that we're used to seeing from him up until this point, but then it was just brick after brick after brick in the mid game, which means that Seiko just had free reign on the board essentially, just to build up this enormous anti-druid board state, the kind of board that Malfurion sees in his nightmares, and that he just has no way of dealing with. And Casie had that slight window with the overflow, but did not find the Mali that he was going to need at that point, just to probably create the tempo swing clear on the board as opposed to just going for straight up lethal, because Seiko did attempt to lock the game out by going to 35. But yeah, from that point, it was going to be almost impossible for Casie to find a win condition.
Yeah, and honestly, a really big deal there for Seiko's deck switch for that game number 2, because although I mentioned, and I still believe that this switch is not built to beat Mali Druid at all, but there are cards that helped him there, getting hold of that Bloom, so he could have played that Tiamat early to help fight back the board from the Guardian Animals was absolutely huge. If that doesn't happen, then does Seiko actually get the board back in that game of Hearthstone? I don't know, maybe not. And even then, just like you said, the knowledge gained from saying, oh wait, Malygos is still in the deck, which means I do have some time here. I can set up this lethal and go for this push. So pretty interesting the way that although the decks aren't just always specifically targeting just one thing, or sometimes they have some spread, at how some of these cards do help in these awkward matchups.
And there's a possible option to go back and look at as well, where on the Guardian Animals turn, on the Ghidra Guardian Animals turn, the Moonfire wasn't used, and Casie just sacrificed his whole Teacher's Pet to deal with the Divine Shield instead. Which I was saying, it makes sense. You want the full 30 damage combo against Priest. But in that particular iteration of the game, for a couple of turns after that, Casie was still pushing damage with his minions, but just fell a little bit short of being able to end the game with those minions.
Right.
So maybe if he had a bit more of a robust board state that turn and one less Moonfire in hand, maybe his minions would have just got there on board from the power of the initial tempo swing.
Yeah, and although that might have seemed like quite unlucky from Casey's side of it, of just, okay, the Malygos is just sat at the bottom of the deck by the looks of things, that's probably just based off the other games we've seen Casie play this weekend that have been very, very powerful and just like chaining the threats, chaining the ramp. But you do see that with most Druid decks, there is a certain level of that failure rate with just needing so much card draw to support such a specific combo that if you miss on that card draw a little bit as fast as you used to, then yeah, if you're missing one big combo piece, well, guess what? You can't OTK someone. So yeah, going to go back to the drawing board here and going to go into game number 3, Casie. Seems in good spirits even after that loss, popping along some music, I think. And yeah, seeing if you can get the job done again this time.
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake about it. Like, Druid is favored in this matchup. You are supposed to make things look easy a lot of the time. But yeah, Casie has probably been on slightly the extreme side of making things look easy up until this point. Good curve again here from Seiko, though. Minions on 1 and 2, exactly what he wants to be doing in the matchup.
Yeah, not too bad at all. Even has, maybe not super impactful right now, but the Broom, but even the Omu available in Seiko's hand could lead to some shenanigans, or most importantly, just having an extra body. It kind of acts like, if you're not doing a big combo with it, kind of just acts like an Anubisath a lot of the time, right?
Uh-oh. Unchecked Ghidra. Coming in hot.
Yeah. Thing is, though, does Casie want to commit a germination here? Or do you think he's just okay with the Breath of Dreams?
That is the question, right? It's slightly awkward because, again, as you saw before, the germination not only would break up one of his core win conditions in the matchup, it also gives the second new copy of Ghidra that still has Spellburst on it, Taunt, which then you just roll straight into the Vilefin that's waking up this turn to be able to just take a potentially really good value trade. So, yeah, I think Breath of Dreams is pretty reasonable there. Seiko's taking the hit again this turn, though.
With this hand, do you think Wave of Apathy is required here, or do you think it's a bit of a waste? Because he could just Wave of Apathy and start putting some damage into this, and then try and kill it over the course of 2 turns. It's just tough to... I don't want to say throw away, but it feels a little bit like you're throwing away a very powerful card in the matchup.
I agree. I think it has to be done. If you don't sink damage into it this turn, there's a good chance you're also not dealing with it next turn, right? With the hand that you have currently. Right? You'd have to go for some Omu line, right? Like Omu, Moonfire, and then Broom with your refreshed mana crystals.
I mean, we might see that regardless, right? Because to me, that just sounds like a pretty decent turn
sure.
For Seiko to make. Like I said, if you're not doing a big combo, Omu kind of just is an extra body if you can proc it for free.
Yeah. And this is very much just beatdown Druid so far. There's no real Mali trickery going on just yet. This is just good old-fashioned ramp into quality minions and guardian animals so far. And even then, pretty much without the ramp, to be perfectly honest. Like, Seiko has ramped more than Casie has this game, at least permanently.
And the problem here is for Seiko, although he now has an additional minion he could use the Broom with, he needs to Omu first to commit to it before he can, say, use the Disciple to see what he gets and then go for it, right? It's like he has to commit Omu first or he won't have the mana to make the play.
Yes. It is nice that the Moonfire is so clean here, though.
Yes. Oh, just got the Crunks. By the looks of it.
I mean, I kind of respect this. How much does the rush really do in this situation?
Well, he's taking 13 this turn, so he's going down to 10.
Yep.
If it all goes face, of course. It's a little bit scary.
Oh, interesting.
Nice.
Tough to know here, honestly, because how much value does all this face damage have when you're going to be looking to rip an overflow over the coming turns? How scary is Apotheosis here? How scary is the fact that 6/6 just takes a natural trade over the 3/5? All of these things need considering here for Casie, because this was around the period of the game that we saw him last time, just losing the board and then not being able to recover.
It might happen again, or at least the losing the board bit, right? Seiko does have the power to do this. Even the Soul Mirror, although not mind-blowing, wouldn't have been terrible for Seiko there if he felt like he had to be pushed into it. But still, this CMAT can do a very similar job as well.
Yeah, again, I love the Rush Wind Fury. Be able to power through, leave 2 damaged minions on board around the time in the game where Mali Druid really wants to overflow. Casie finds himself just a little bit stuck here.
Yeah, this is not what you want to be doing with 9 mana as Druid. Dropping a Teacher's Pet and Hero powering down a 6/1. Like, I mean, Casie has to. I'm not calling this play wrong in any way. He has to respect the CMF, especially after what happened last game. But look, he just had a Ysir. He could have just plonked down, right? That would have just been very, very powerful.
This is just a Teacher's Pet here. But
Most
Seiko,
importantly, it's an 8/8.
Exactly, yeah. Seiko, most importantly, just saying, you know what, huge threat. And I think Casie's recognized he's not going to have time to get all the way through the deck here for the double Mali combo or the double spell burst Mali combo. So he's just going to use it right now to be able to cycle this out with the Dream Portals.
Yeah. Sounded like disappointing. Yeah, he's just going to spend about 8,000 mana this turn.
Yeah,
not really what he was after, but
terrible,
you got to
right?
do what you got to do, right?
Yep. 22 cards in the deck, 7 portals. He doesn't really want to be hitting more than 3 of them, but that is around about the likely outcome, so he should just be fine. That's huge. That is not so huge. Okay, slow down, slow down, slow down. That's enough now. That's enough now.
Time waits for no one.
Uh-oh. A lot of value being lost here from Casie.
That's 2 burnt now?
Yep.
3?
Ooh. Just the 1 remaining in the deck. Second time in as many days we've seen Casie top-load all of his dragons. Once, very, very much to his benefit. That time, not so much.
And now Seiko has to think very, very quickly what are the correct answers here. Does he want to just plague this away and forget about it? Or does he see a soul mirror? Oh, jeez, I don't know. Does he have to play because he takes too much damage on the backswing?
Yeah, the Soul Mirror is not a very efficient clear, right?
No. I was looking at whether he can, like, do the 2 trades into the taunts with penance and get 8 damage through. But I feel like the 8 damage just doesn't matter versus having to play.
If he does that...
And all these minions are shaped in an odd way, right?
Yeah, I mean, he could. So yeah, exactly. If he can do that and then not use the penance potentially, and then depending on what happens here with the taunt, he can use the penance to break through even further.
Okay.
And then use this 8 damage actually to deny minions on the other side of the board, which could end up being super relevant.
Don't think Seiko's happy with that turn. Everything just left a little bit too late.
Yeah, agreed.
And again, just the rope being punishing, whether it'll lose the game or win the game or not, it's still causing these players to either rush and still make the plays they want to, or just miss out on certain things, like the consideration of maybe that Cobra, maybe not. It was definitely a tricky turn, though, because it's hard to look at Plague when you have such big minions on your side of the board.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I do like the line overall that Seiko ended up with. It was just the execution towards the end that just didn't end up being quite right.
I bring life.
Casie just going to giddy up here.
Time waits for no one.
Try and challenge this board state as hard as he can. Galakrond is going to be able to clear this up. The Shadow Word Ruin now can clear this up as well. Kaj potential alongside that as well with Animated Broom to get an immediate 8/8 in play.
Yeah, so we can, like, Kaj... I mean, I guess Kaj Disciple. Yeah, you can drop the Disciple as well if he wants, or maybe go for a heal. But the Kaj, Broom, and then Death looks really good, doesn't it? Trade the 2 3/4s into the 4/6 to get the 8/8. Well, the 2 3/4s. The 1 3/4 and the Kaj. 2 3 attacks, I should have said.
Yes.
Looks pretty solid to me.
And unless Casie can end it right now, Seiko is looking in command of this game state, and Casie emphatically cannot end it right now based on this hand. Yeah, make sure you get this ordering right as well. Don't want to be making this trade anytime soon.
That'd be embarrassing. Okay, that's actually reasonable, yeah.
Yeah, value trades to keep more damage on board for the next turn means that he's now showing 21 with Casie, coincidentally, on 21. One Twilight Runner remaining? No, it's in hand. Casie just has to play the runner, yeah.
So 21, as you mentioned quite rightly, Saul, I do wonder now if it's just going to be a heal Galacron, keep this simple, go face again. If Casie couldn't respond last turn, why can he respond the turn after?
Yep, absolutely. One Dream Portal remaining in the deck, Mali remaining in the deck, Double Swipe remaining in the deck, second Moonfire remaining in the deck. Zigsaw Prime remaining in the deck as well.
Imagine if Guardian Animals just summoned 4 of them. You'd be like, what? Also wouldn't work because of the cost of course, but it would still be funny.
Still 6 showing by my count, though. Which means either a Moonfire or a double ramp Anubisath defender has to come out here for Casie to defend himself.
But the problem is every single turn that goes by now, Casey's using more and more resources, which means, is he just starving himself out?
Oh!
Never mind. Never mind. Seiko. Gonna take the victory here over Casie. Didn't even let him shoot the fireball, but he is gonna take the win over Casie then, taking a very, very rough matchup there and booking a spot in the finals there, Sol. Pretty crazy, actually. I did not expect this, even though I hoped for it.
You certainly did, yeah. I mean, you're on the verge of something absolutely astonishing here if you actually, against all the odds, end up picking Seiko for the victory here. But he has yet another huge test up against him, perhaps arguably even more so coming up against Viper Zoo in the final. But yeah, that was a couple of pretty brutal Malagos Druid games from Casey's side, I would say. You know, Mali and Burn, bottom 5, 2 games in a row. Portals all getting burned there in that game as well, so he couldn't necessarily just dominate on board over time. He got in some trouble for sure. But I will say, you know, maybe that's just the other side of the coin from some of the absolute blowout encounters that he had against Wama yesterday, for example, where he just had the absolute monster game-ending draws.
And I think as well, it is both sides, right? Definitely some unfortunate moments and draws and the deck order, I guess, from Casie in that series. But I think Seiko had some great recognition of timing and when to go in, when to hold back, how to use certain removal, decision-making was very, very strong there, because that looked like Seiko made that game scarier for Casie just because of how he was choosing to play it, right? And when he was going off with some of the pressure players. So I think it was very, very well played from Seiko. And so congratulations to him. We do have our final 2. And then not only is it going to be a great final of Zoo versus Priest, it's going to be a great final as well of my prediction versus Sottles. So we're going to see who's going to take it in that one. But before we do, we are going to give Seiko, of course, some time to get ready for the finals, not making play straight away. So we're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back with that final match.